Hello, welcome to Recovery Live. As you can see, I am with Dale Barker today. Tom is gone, and it seems like we haven't had a show with Tom. Well, I haven't seen Tom on a show in a while because 2 weeks ago I was on with Sarah. Last week, Tom was on without me, and now here we are without Tom. But first, let's start with what's coming up. We have a retreat in San Jose, not open to the public, but it is at a, what do they call it? A rehab live-in center in San Jose next weekend, February 16th through the 18th. We have a mocktail hour on February 21st. There's the pretty flyer. And so look at that. That should also be on our website as well. Then we have a retreat in April in Kips Bay, New York. There's another flyer. And a 2-day virtual retreat, only 20 spots open for this one. This will be April 19th through the 20th. So be sure to get your spot on that one. It's virtual and it's 2 days. So that's kind of exciting if you want to get recovered in 2 days rather than the 3. And then in my area in May, we will have a retreat in Nevada City, which is also a 2-day, May 4th and 5th. I don't think we have a flyer for that yet, but that's something to think about in the future in May. And today, as I said, we're joined by Dale Barker, and we're going to talk about recovered versus recovering, recovery, and those kind of topics, which I'm excited to see where you're going to take us, Dale, because you've been in this space a lot longer than me. I've been with you guys for about 2.5 years, so it's pretty new to me to be saying I am recovered, and I love your shirt. It's perfect timing. But in the big book, right in the foreword, it says that how many people, recovered alcoholics. And so what do you think, or what do you say to people if they're kind of caught off guard when you say you are recovered? Or how do you approach that subject?
Well, what I usually tell people is that I did the steps the way the guys that wrote the big book did the steps. And they were recovered. So if they got recovered, I should be able to get recovered too. And I usually leave it at that unless they press the point. And then I kind of go into explaining how I live in the solution instead of living in the problem. I focus on the solution to the problems instead of the problems themselves. Because when you go through the steps and you start living on 10, 11, and 12, your problems tend to disappear because you're not they get taken care of, and they're yesterdays. They're in the past. They're no longer your problem because they've been taken care of. So that's the difference, is living in the solution. It just allows me freedom to make mistakes. I mean, I couldn't make mistakes before because I didn't know how to live in the solution. I had to hide everything I did. But now if I make a mistake, it's, did it again. And I know what to do. I admit it. I talk to somebody about it. I don't hide it. And I make amends if I need to make amends for hurting someone. And anymore, it just doesn't happen very often. I'm just not out hurting people to where I have to make amends. So that's 30 years of doing this program. That's what that gives me.
Mm-hmm. So then how would you feel like, because I was thinking about this question before we came on, and I was thinking that, but we can still, and we do still say, or do we, stop me if I'm wrong, I'm still an alcoholic, I'm still a sugar carb addict, but I can be recovered and that. Or do you not even say you're an alcoholic anymore?
No, I'm a recovered alcoholic.
Recovered. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a recovered sugar addict also.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I had cheesecake last night at my mom's 79th birthday. It seemed like a good reason to have cheesecake.
Right. I'm on the same boat. I do dessert 4 times a year and I
Yeah,
am a sugar carb addict, but for me, it works. And with food, it's a little different than alcohol. It's not like I drink 4 times a year. I think that's a little different.
right, right.
But it's tricky. It's a little tricky
Well,
sometimes.
it's not the using alcohol wasn't the problem. It was why I used it. Eating sugar wasn't the problem. It was why I did it. I was eating my feelings instead of
Exactly.
dealing with my feelings and being healthy, spiritually, mentally, and physically. I was still somewhat sick physically, um, and it took many, many years for me to start eating better. I mean, just like it did for you. I mean,
Hmm.
it just took a long time to get to that place where I was willing to do something about it. But once I did, I found out I had the power to carry it out because it's God's will for me to be happy, joyous, and free, healthy. Uh, and it starts for me. It starts spiritually, and then it translates into mentally and physically.
Yes. Matt has said, when therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, recovered,
Yeah.
there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid out at our feet.
Right.
Page 25. Yeah. Oh, it's all over the book, right? Recovered,
Yeah.
solved. And if it's solved, then we don't have to keep doing it. But I do understand how people could fall into that because if I was going to meetings and I did in the past and
Right.
saying I'm recovering or I'm on the or whatever they say, and I didn't know any different, so I was kind of in that space. But
Right.
what about people? Have you ever heard or talked to anybody that think, well, I'm okay saying I'm recovering. It's fine for me. I guess it
Right.
could be, right? If they're thinking it's okay, it's not like we have to make them say they're recovered if they don't want to or
Right.
feel that they are.
Right.
But maybe it's like I was talking to Casera a little bit before this, is that maybe to some people it's just semantics, it's just the word. But I think you and I are talking like deeper. It's right, and it's a little more common sense, maybe. And the book says recovered, and let's study why they said recovered and why it might be a better mindset to have rather than we're just like recovering and recovering and recovering, which I can also fight for because we are transforming and growing in 10, 11, and 12.
Right.
So how would that be different than recovering?
Well,
It's
if all I can do is share my experience and strength and hope with people, this is what happened for me. Not everybody chooses the 12 steps as their recovery vehicle. Not everybody's on board with the 12 steps and what it entails. And they're not willing to go to the links that the big book talks about. That's none of my business. I mean, really, I see lots of people who aren't drinking successfully. And for them, they're recovering. And that's okay with me. The reason I say I'm recovered is because that's what they said. That's what the book said. I try to take all of the, being an expert away from myself because I tend to have a big ego. Uh, and I try to put it on the guys that wrote the book and what's in the book. And that's the message I try to carry. That's the came to believe message. Um,
Mhm.
Sure, we get better by doing the steps and by living a certain way in 10, 11, and 12, living in the go. We get better for ourselves, but it's really not about us getting better. It's about us helping people. And I've really had to look at um, pushing recovered on people um, because it just seems so simple to me. But if you don't go through the steps and you don't have a spiritual experience as a result, you're not going to see yourself as recovered. Um, and it's not their fault. It's just they haven't experienced that yet. So my hope is always when I get a chance to share about it is that somebody will go, huh, kind of like what I did. I want what he has. That's what, because when I heard my sponsor talk about it, Steve Foreman, he said he was recovered. I want what he has, and I looked in the book. On page 85, when it's talking about the 10th step, it says, we will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given to us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it. Neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we had been placed in the position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So, I can't argue somebody into going through the steps.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be some inspiration there. They have to see something, well, maybe that would work for me if I did that. I didn't feel like I had a choice. I was ready to die. I was divorced. I was a failure. The only thing I had left was my job. I didn't know what else to do. And I met some people that were happy and successful doing this program this way. And I just joined them and went through the steps, and my life changed that day when I went through the steps. But you got lots of people that are looking for the solution, and it's in this book. And that's why we have these retreats, is because it really works. But it's got to be your choice. You got to choose to do it and choose to go through it. But it applies to everything in my life. I'm a recovered people pleaser. It used to really matter to me what other people thought about me, and I would not be myself to think that I could make them happier about me. Today, I just be myself and let it fly. And that's not always the popular thing. But it works. You just have to do. I've seen you change dramatically from doing it just a short time you've been doing it. And, you've been doing it a lot longer than most people.
Yeah. And it's like what you were just saying is like practice these principles in all our affairs, right? Not just with alcohol, but with our relationships and with our budget and our money and our attitude and our defects of character and our health and our fitness so it is a process, obviously. And go ahead.
I was sitting there with my family last night at my mom's birthday, and there was no alcohol involved. Everybody was relatively happy. Glad to be there. We had great conversations. This is abnormal for my family. This is new. This is wonderful. It's a perk that I didn't really know I wanted. It's just, and it was just for me going through the steps. They all got better because of the way I live and the way I do things, and my, it just it has made a big difference in people's lives, and because people are watching.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, people are watching us. They want to see how we live. But yeah, practicing these principles in all of my affairs, I'm really careful. I'm more thoughtful about what I say today to people than I used to be.
Yeah, I'm noticing that today too. I just this morning made an amends to my husband because he wanted to, I'm cleaning the sheets on our beds, and he wants to every now and again to flip the mattresses because then the lumps are moved or whatever. And I was in the middle of a text that I got from my mom, and I was just thinking about this show, and I was like really short with him, like, I'll just do it by myself later. It's like this. And he kind of just walked away. And then I was like, oops. And then I'm like, whatever. And then it just kind of sat with me. So 15 minutes ago, I walked in there. I wouldn't have done this like a year ago. I would have like, whatever. But I'm like, I just want to apologize and make an amends for cutting you off, or because and I explained it to him. He was like, wow, thank you for doing that. Because he did notice. And then he said something like he was going down the hall singing to himself, "She will not steal my joy. She will not steal my joy." Because it was just like a nothing thing, but it was a huge thing, and there was a tension there. And if I didn't say anything, it could have grown. And then who knows where my mind would have went. And so, yeah, I have to practice these in all my affairs and do step 10. That was a step 10.
That's spiritual progress right there.
Yes.
You avoided carrying that burden with you everywhere you went. And then he would have been carrying it also, because it's all logged in the file that's against the other person.
Yep.
So by taking care of that file has been erased. That's what the 10th step for. It's like an eraser on a pencil. That's gone. And that's the wonderful thing about this. When you start living in peace of mind, you notice when it changes, I'm just willing to do what it takes to fix that today, because I like having peace of mind. I like being happy, joyous, and free. I enjoy being recovered. Not that I can't dwell on things, it's just I don't have to today. I have choices, and I'm pretty good about exercising my choices today.
All right, let's look at these long things we have over here. Let's see. Matt said, I got a spiritual awakening as a result of an honest 5th step, and then continued to have spiritual experience after making amends. And young daughter doesn't say she hates me anymore, says she loves me again. And hearing my mom say her prayers about me have been answered, and just seeing people around me get well and regain everything they have lost. So that's awesome. Like, as he grows and he does his 10, 11, and 12, other people are growing as well, like you had said with your family, right?
Right.
Like, it just kind of rubs off. And then Brad said, let's see. 1, do you have a drinking problem, or fill in the blank? What is your ism? Do you want to do something about it? And 3, what are you willing to do about it? If you said yes, yes, and anything, now you can make a beginning.
That's right.
Yeah, so we do have to do stuff to get recovered.
That's the start, though. That's the willingness to live this way, because it's different. I was used to holding people accountable, and I was used to dictating and having people meet my feelings and my needs, and it's different now when I go about my day trying to do that for other people, trying to be a positive influence for people instead of a negative. So yeah, the steps have it's revolutionized my whole way of looking at people, because I'm here to be fit for maximum service to God and the people about me. I can't do that if I'm always worrying about me. So,
and that brings me back to the topic that I kind of brought up before, is like we're constantly transforming and growing, right? Because say that we went to a retreat and then someone is just 2 days recovered, they're going to be still, and so are we, falling, and defects of character are still coming up. And then I can hear them saying, I'm not recovered. I'm a mess. But we can say, they are, if, is it an if they're doing 10, 11, and 12, then they're recovered? Would you say that's true or?
I would say that's true.
Okay, so then we would just encourage them to keep in the steps, get a sponsor, stay in 10, 11, and 12, and just keep going.
Right. I mean, my wife and I, when we were newly married, we went to counseling. You know, we needed to learn how to talk to each other because we kept pushing each other's buttons.
Mhm.
We had lived lives as uh, addicted people. We were trying to learn how to live sober, um, but it doesn't mean that we weren't recovered. It just meant that we were growing in knowledge, in strength and power daily, as we, improved our conscious contact, as we learned how to deal better with people. Um, it's a progress. It took a long time to get that sick, so it takes a while. Spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection. We It's just a, you know, it's a decision, but then you have to follow through with action and every day. And it's really, after a while, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, it's a process for sure. My husband and I went to a lot of counseling too, and then I went on my own
Right.
forever and ever. But I love counseling. I would say it could benefit anybody.
Right.
It really can.
But I had great mentors. I mean, I had people with 20, 30, 40 years of sobriety, and work in this program, um, advising me. But I learned a lot because I do it with other people. I take other people through the steps, men, um,
Mhm,
generally.
mhm,
Being involved with Came to Believe Recovery has grown me immensely because I've had to learn how to do public speaking, and I've had to learn how to, um, behave and be an adult, and um, be on time, uh, stay within my window, stay in my lane. I've had to learn a lot of things along the way, to be able to help people, um, because not everybody sees it the way Dale sees it. It's we all grow in our different ways, but
mhm.
it's about being effective and helping people. To me, that's just how I look at it today.
Yeah. Where do you think relapse falls into the realm of recovered, being recovered? Like if they, I would think if they're not doing 10, 11, and 12, and they're just kind of falling back into that and then relapse. And then if they get back on track, can they say that that day they get back on track, they're recovered again? Trick question.
Uh, people can say whatever they want. It's not my business to
Yeah.
set that bar for that person. Um, if somebody drinks again or uses again, I always welcome them back, and I'm grateful you survived,
Mhm.
because I mean, addiction is trying to kill us. It's not just like uh, other addictions. It's actual purpose. It's poison. Alcohol is poison. Drugs can be poison if you're used incorrectly. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, for the first time last year, for the first time in history, drug addiction killed more people than alcoholism, and it's because of fentanyl. And you just don't know what you're getting anymore. I mean, it's not like you had trustworthy drug dealers in the past, probably,
Right.
but in alcohol, you kind of know what you're getting, because it's got a sticker on it, a proof on it, or whatever you're getting. But with drugs, I mean, if illegal drugs, you just don't really know what's in it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So grateful to be recovered today, that I'm not having to concern myself with that. Um, but yeah, people that relapse are not doing something. They're not, they're not taking inventory or being honest with themselves. or they're not seeking to improve their conscious contact with God,
Mm-hmm.
or they're not helping people. I mean, it's one of those three things that we do if we're living in the go, 10, 11, and 12. Because the things in step 10 that block us from God means if we try to do step 11, we don't hear from God. So we're not learning. We're not growing spiritually. And then in step 12, we've got nothing to help people with. So we burn out helping people. We just burn out because, I mean, there's nothing simple and easy about addicts. I mean, they're a handful. So, but working with others is also your family, your workplace. There's other people involved other than just working in the rooms with people. So it's just a beneficial personal relationship, a personal responsibility to do the steps in a way that helps you to be more functional, to be more successful. I mean, everybody wants to be successful, right?
I would think so, but then I think that our defects of character or our negative thinking or our unworthiness feelings, right, would make us think like, but I can't, or I won't, but again, that's step 4 and 5 and 10. And if we're working it, we should kind of get through it. Maybe not to perfection, obviously not to perfection, but we should be growing. We should be, I think everybody, if we look back, we should be able to tell like, wow, I've grown.
Yeah.
And a constant. And then I hear the quote too that confuses me. Like, if we're not going forward, then we're going backward. Do you believe in that? I guess I
was taught if you're not growing, you're rotting. That's what I was taught.
And people think, and I have thought, well, no, I'm not going backwards. I'm just staying right here. But I think that would mean, you're going backwards.
Right. Yeah. And it can be incremental. I mean, it can be very small steps that you're growing. But by doing the process, I mean, you might not be able to tell by looking at yourself that you're growing for a while. But after a while, you stop. If you start getting the promises, the 9-step promises, the promises that are in the big book, if you start getting those things, then you're on the right path, because those are guideposts. Fear of economic insecurity will leave us. I mean, that is a great place to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Because to no longer be afraid of lack of money, that fear right there was one of the 100 forms of fear that made me drink.
The economic insecurity?
Yeah. I didn't understand it at the time. But as I was as I started reading Proverbs, I was told to read Proverbs every day because there's 31 Proverbs in the Bible. And it's a wisdom, a book of wisdom from 4,000 years ago. And it still applies today. And it talked a lot about fools. And I was foolish with money. I was foolish with relationships. I was foolish with my time. I did a lot of foolish things. And in Proverbs, it talks a lot about me and the way I used to live. And these things started hitting me in the face. I was like, oh, this applies to me. And I had to learn from, either I had to change or I was going to keep getting slapped upside the head with it. And I started, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. I was a guy that thought he was way more attractive when he was drunk, and would act that way. And that's not really who I am. It was just what happened when I drank. But it was foolish. So I've learned by doing 10, 11, and 12. I mean, that's what people don't understand. It's just a process. Stay in the process. Trust the process. God loves us. He's not going to let us fail if we apply ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't sabotage myself anymore with my mouth. I mean, I miss promotions at work because of the way I talk to people. They weren't going to, you don't call your boss stupid and get promoted very often. You don't run your boss down all the time and get promoted very much. I mean, it just was foolish of me to think that that was okay to do that. But that was the work environment I worked in. That was
Well, let
macho.
me ask you a few things about that. First, when you were talking, I was thinking it takes emotional maturity for someone, you in this example, to read Proverbs and say, ooh, because other people could read it and think, well, there's my brother, that's my dad, but it takes like humility and honesty for us. And what if someone's brand new and they don't have that yet? I think that's where we need sponsors that can speak into us, and we let them like read that proverb again. Do you see yourself in there? Because
Right.
I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
They just don't. And
Yeah.
they're not used to looking at themselves, or their pride is just up to here, and I'm sure I'm in that camp sometimes too, because it takes really rigorous honesty and integrity for us to see our behaviors, our thoughts, our temptations. I mean, they're constant.
They're constant.
Yeah.
But I mean, you talk about emotional maturity, and I think of it more as spiritual maturity.
Mhm.
Because I need to hear the 11th step. I need to hear from God. I don't need to hear from me. I need to hear from Him. So
But your pride could block that too,
it can,
right?
right? But if I've done a 10 step, it's gone, right? So my assumption isn't that I'm going to fail if I reach out to God. My assumption is I'm going to succeed and reach Him, and I'm going to hear something I need to hear. It's why I apply myself the way I do, is because I'm confident there's going to be, that's what faith is. I'm confident that there's going to be success by doing it this way.
Yeah, that's like having the expectation that
Yeah.
you are growing, that God
So,
is working in your life, that He
yeah. So,
will give you a sign or a feeling or a direction to go.
yeah. So, spiritual maturity, when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. So the 10th step straightens out that spiritual malady every day, every time I do it, because it just wipes the slate clean. And if you don't bring anything over to the next day, you still have a clean slate when you ask God to guide your day and give you inspiration of what to do and help you with this or that, or when you're doing your reading, or and you should be expect to get it from Him, because He's the only one that's trustworthy to get it from.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go apply it. You go spend your day doing the things you have to do, with the people you have to do them around, and it becomes a working way of living. It becomes a design for living Bill Wilson talked about, if you do that way. So it's just really simple, but we're very complicated people.
We
And
complicate it, I think.
and that's why I like Proverbs, because it's very simple. This is good, this is bad. This is good, this is bad. It does that over and over again. Watch out for women. Some are good and some are bad. Watch out for these kind of women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite things is all things are allowed. It's just all things aren't good for us. So you start to get discernment, and you get an idea of, oh, that's not really good for Dale, or that's not really good for Alicea. I don't need to be doing this. This is something. This is a person I don't need to be around, or this is this is an environment I don't need to be in anymore. And you just start living, and before you know it, you turn around and you go, wow, I just don't do that anymore. I'm just not that person I was anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were talking about. Like, you could look back and say, it's hard to see in the moment that we're growing, but if we look backwards, I bet we could find a lot of evidence that we are, if we're in 10, 11, and 12, that we are growing. or we're slipping. And that's where step 10 comes in. And then get back up and start doing 10, 11, and 12.
It's just and doing these retreats like we do, it's really good for me because I listen to fifth steps and I hear what other people are struggling with, and I might have I might have a word for them, or it helps me, or I get something. Oh, I still do that, or I remember when I did that, and you have that to share with that person. But yeah, it's not very many people do that kind of stuff anymore. I mean, it's mostly they go to meetings, they go for fellowship, and they air their grievances and slap each other on the back, go have coffee. I mean, it's the program is the steps, and the fellowship is the meetings. Yeah. So, it's just, what do you want to do? Do you want to be recovered? It was something I wanted to be. I've always wanted to, number one, I've always wanted the trophy. I've never wanted to finish second in my life. And to me, this was a prize that was worth going for. And I'm so grateful I did. And my daughter, she's 35 years old. She's so grateful I did, because she didn't have to go through what I went through. I got to be a father for her. And it was a total shock to me. I did not expect to be able to ever do that. So it's worth it. There's people in your life that it's worth it. And I'm worth it, and you're worth it. And whoever's out there watching, you guys are worth it. We offer these programs, and not very many people reach out for it. It's like, but then after they do, they go, why didn't you tell me about this? Why did nobody ever tell me about this?
Yeah.
How come nobody talks about this is what they meant when they wrote the book? Well, we're doing our best,
Exactly. Brad did a good point. He said God could and would if he were sought.
Right.
Right? That's our part. We need to seek him, and God can and will.
Yeah.
But we need to seek and do 10 and whatever else we might need to do. And your dues might be different than my dues.
Right. Yeah. If selfishness and self-centeredness were the root of our problem, they can never be the solution. Right? I mean, it's always going to be the root of it. Being selfish and self-centered is always the root. If you're not self-centered, who are you centered around? And that's what God is. That's who God is. That's what he's there for. We centered on, we're God-centered. He's our focus. He's a solution and not the problems.
Yeah.
And it's a miracle. Bill Wilson wrote, it's a miracle. What is this but a miracle of healing? I mean, to be able to be mentally and physically sharp after what the stuff I put in my body, in the way we treated ourselves, it is remarkable. It's a miracle to me that I can do what I do today, that I can, be successful and be happy and travel and do all the things I never did when I used.
Exactly. Well, and the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it.
Right.
That goes right in line with God could and would if he were sought. It's not a theory. It's not make believe. We have to live it. And we do our part and God does his part. And two, with God, and the more we do step 11 and grow in the knowledge of his word and what he can do in our lives, he sees us as a blank slate, right? So we are forgiven, which would mean we are recovered.
Right.
We're forgiven, we're recovered, and we continue to grow. Doesn't mean we're done ever. And we just continue to transform and follow his lead.
Yeah. Do you know somebody who has recovered from cancer?
Yes.
They
call it remission, right?
I do too. They've recovered. They're in remission. Everybody in the world has cancer cells in their body.
So we're
right?
all in remission then,
We're all
right?
in remission until we're not. Um, and whatever the factors are that cause you to go into cancer growth, we're not talking about that today because that's the problem. What we're talking about is the solution. So the solution to that is the opposite of whatever you're doing that causes your body to go into cancer. And it can be what you eat. It can be, lots of things. Like I finally went to the uh, skin doctor. What's that called? What's the
Dermatologist.
dermatologist? My wife has been on me for years because I'm a surfer, so I've
Oh.
been in the water for most of my life without sunscreen, without a shirt. I'm staring into the sun, the eastern sun on the Atlantic Ocean in the mornings, um, and I never worried about it because of the ways I'm going to die. That's one of the ones I have no control over now because I lived that way for 45, 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
I can't undo any damage that was done, but I can not do more damage at 62 years old. So, I wear a shirt, I wear a hat, I wear sunscreen when I go to the beach. Um, I'm smarter than I was. I've grown from where I was. But I went to the dermatologist and there was really nothing. Um,
Good.
you know, and that made her feel better. And it just showed me, well, I had faith that I was okay, but that was more like confirmation for me. Okay, so I've made changes. I'm doing things better, and that's a good sign. That's the way I looked at it. And I'll keep going back and getting checked. But I
Yeah.
but I made changes, to the way I do things now. So to maintain that, what do I do? Okay, so now and it took a long time for me to get there, but I finally got there.
Yeah. That's an example of your part, right? You can't fix the past, but you can
Right.
do stuff in the beginning, or I mean, from now on.
From
Just
now
like
on.
I won't probably get a job in a bakery. That probably wouldn't be a good idea for me. I won't be hanging around people that just binge all day long. Probably not a good idea for me. And that's okay.
So,
We
hey,
have I have to navigate what works for me, and maybe in the future I'll be able to. Well, I don't know why I would, but maybe I could be around that. Be fine. Like in the beginning when I quit alcohol, I wasn't going to bars, but
no,
now I could totally go to a bar. I don't care. I
right.
don't want to, but I could.
I don't mind going to a bar now, but I don't like being there late. When
Yeah, and
people,
then everybody's drunk and loud and
yeah, I don't appreciate obnoxious people anymore. I mean, it's just not fun.
yeah,
Since I'm not participating, it's not a, it's not a good time for me. Um, I see
yeah,
people doing what I used to do. You know,
yeah. All right. Well, I think, do you have any other last thoughts on being recovered?
yes, I do.
Okay, good.
This is on page 103 of the big book, a third edition, and
Okay.
it's the last paragraph. It's in italics. It says, after all, our problems were of our own making. Bottles were only a symbol. Besides, we have stopped fighting anybody or anything we have to. So I don't have to fight stuff. I mean, it actually says do not fight stuff. That's what that says to me. Um, that's why I say I'm recovered because I'm not fighting it anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and that problem's been removed. And I don't have those character defects anymore because God has removed them in step 7. And I'm not going to say I do. What I do is make mistakes. You know, I forget. Oh yeah, God's fixed that already. I I thought I did. That's a mistake. I ask forgiveness. I make amends if I need to, and then I move on. And to me, that's one of the most important paragraphs in the big book right there. Is that's the way I live today. I'm not fighting anything. there's politics. I'm not fighting that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's community things going on around where I live. I'm not fighting that. I'm trusting God. You know, I'm cleaning house. That's what Dr. Bob said, and I'm helping others. That's how I live today. It just takes all of that stuff that I would put on me to do. It takes it away and makes it, all right, God, what do you want me to do today? And then go through my day. Being healthier is a goal. Is, you know, being have a less of a gravitational force on my body, you know, because I weigh less. You know, that's a goal for me. I would like to get down, lose this belly fat that I've been carrying around for 20 years. It just doesn't need to be there anymore. But there's things I have to do to make that happen. There's not a miracle pill I could take. Believe me, I've tried them. None of them worked for me.
Right, because it's not a pill, right? It's our relationship with food. It's the stories we tell ourselves. That's the problem. It's not a freaking pill.
No.
Our body is not lacking a pill.
Well, it's the softer, easier way. Is the ways I've tried. Because changing the way you eat isn't easy.
It's not.
It takes dedication and discipline and effort and understanding of the people around you, because the people you eat with see you change, and then they don't want to change.
Right.
And it's a conflict sometimes. So it's a process, you know. It's a process, one day at a time. I live one day at a time. So, you know, and that's another thing. It's not that I don't drink one day at a time, because drinking's not even a question. I don't even think about it. It doesn't even come up unless I'm doing something with recovery. I mean, I don't. It's not an issue in my life today. But that's because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing every day, to be recovered. Mm-hmm. That's why it's not an issue. Somebody who's not doing what we do, it's an issue. And I wouldn't want that burden anymore. So, you know, I'm making progress. It's not perfection. I'm moving ahead. I'm moving forward. I'm growing. I'm not rotting. And that's all I can do, really. I mean, I don't get to be perfect. You know, perfectionism was a character defect. I don't get to be perfect. And it's okay to make mistakes today.
Yep. And we're still recovered, even when we make mistakes.
Yeah. We're recovered from alcoholism. I'm recovered from alcoholism.
And you can be too, everybody.
Yeah.
So I think that's a wrap. Thank you, Dale. Check out our website, cametobelieverecovery.org, and check out retreats, mocktail hour, everything else that's coming up. And we'll see you next week on Recovery Live.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.